Hi, my name is Jeremy Elder. I'm a designer on the design system team at GitLab, and I want to walk through 3 evaluation steps that we're using for the dark mode rollout, just to provide a little bit of visual context into what each step is designed to do and what outcomes we're expecting. So as part of this dark mode rollout, we're wanting to find parts of the UI that are not using design tokens that should be. We're wanting to identify parts of the UI that are using design tokens, but perhaps incorrectly. Maybe they're misapplied or not used as expected. And lastly, to identify components that are just out of compliance in some way, shape, or form. So step 1 is a visual review. Step 2 is a checklist. Step 3 is a code review. It involves design and engineering, and it's not specific to those roles, but this is what it's geared towards. It depends on skill set, comfortability, etc. As part of this, we have 2 different tools to help us investigate and go through this evaluation. First is a hot pink bookmarklet. It highlights anything on the page that is not using design tokens. And the other is a highlighter browser extension that allows us to search and identify pages and parts of pages, elements within the page, and have it highlighted so that we can easily find it and spot things that look amiss. And so let's see here. I'll switch over to this repository page. And as is, quick scan of the page looks just fine. So I can see that there are probably some elements here that are not using the design system. For the most part, drop downs, content, everything is. I want to go ahead and turn on what we're calling CSI mode, which is really a combination of the highlighter and the bookmarklet. CSI, Cascading Styles Inspector, Component Silliness Inventory, whatever acronym you want to use. It's just our CSI mode to investigate what's happening on these pages. So I've turned that on and refresh. We see this lovely collection of items that have been highlighted in hot pink. So quick visual scan, I can identify borders, backgrounds, text, things that don't look as they seem. I can even identify there's a little bit of text within a tooltip. These are elements that are not using design tokens. And what that means is as we update the UI, these are not going to be changed per mode as expected. As we do away with some of the inversion CSS, these things would not be changed. And so we need to migrate them to use design tokens so that they can be changed effectively. So that's step 1. The second one is identifying things that are potentially not using design tokens correctly. This is a little more challenging because some of the colors are going to be used the same, but there's different tokens that apply to text, to headings, to icons. So I'm going to open up the highlighter extension, and I've got my GL text in here. I'm just searching for anything using a GL text class, turn on the highlighting, and several things are highlighted. Now, not all text is going to be because it is inheriting styles from elsewhere, but anything that's using a GL text class is going to get highlighted. What's interesting to me is that there are icons that get highlighted here. When I inspect these SVGs are actually getting their color from a text design token. So this is a place where we identify things that are using a design token but incorrectly. If we wanted to change that text color to something different, these icons are also going to change, which in most cases is probably not our design intent. There's also other things that are a little sneakier. This is right here. This project information is actually a heading. Now it doesn't look like one. It looks just like bold text, just like created on below, which is actually a paragraph. But this one's a heading, and so let's just see what that is using from a design token standpoint. Our dev tools. Up here, it's a heading. If I look at color, indeed, it's actually using GL text color strong instead of GL text color heading, which is interesting because it's a heading. So this should probably be using a heading design token rather than just text. We have those for that reason. So up here, another icon that's using text. So we've identified things pretty easily that are using design tokens, but using them in an incorrect way. Lastly, step 3 is a little more takes a little more digging. And this is where I'm looking more at the component level, looking at the code. I could also do some semantic, digging in here, whatnot. But as a quick example, I've got this page where it's a settings page, and it has a lot of form elements. Excuse me. So I want to look at all of these and just say, are each one of these using GL form? Highlight it. Sure enough, we've got inputs, radio buttons, checkboxes, all using it, text areas. But as I scroll down, I notice one text area that's not highlighted. This is an opportunity for migration. This is an opportunity to know this thing is not using what it should. It's not using the component as expected. And because of this, it's probably not going to get the styles at some point, and this is going to appear visually broken. Inspect this. Indeed, it's a text area, but it's using just a form control class. That's all that's there. If I go up to another text area, you can see I'm using GL form input, which is correct. So I've identified something that looks like a component, but really by nature isn't. If I keep scrolling down the page, keep in mind I'm looking for form elements. I have this container highlighted here, which if I expand is not a form, but it's being identified as something to do with forms, which is really interesting. It actually looks the same as this container above, which is not a form. So with these tools, I can identify that, inspect this. Indeed, it's actually a field set with an empty legend. Pretty interesting because that's not what this section is. And so this is something that would be like a non-compliant use of a GL form group. And maybe there's a form in there in some condition, or there was a form in there at one point, but there isn't one right now, which can pose accessibility problems. It can pose style problems if we wanted to style GL form group and all of a sudden this container here was getting those classes. It would be very confusing and also create some visual breakage. So that's an example of identifying components that look one way that maybe aren't, and vice versa, things that should be but that aren't getting those styles. So I hope that helps. That's just a quick walkthrough of these evaluation steps: visual review, checklist, code review, what the visual output looks like, how we're approaching these. And we'll get more into this as we start providing reviews to teams and going from there. So thank you for your time.